Google Forms is a form creating application. It's free. And I think people automatically assume that if you're going to create a form, you want to create it for other people. But actually what I've been interested a lot is the notion of creating forms for ourselves. And so I'm going to start with some really simple examples of forms and talk about practical applications and use. And then I'll kind of take you through as many of the bells and whistles as we can get done in an hour. Okay? So let me actually start with the basic thing that happens when you enter Google Forms. And by the way, you can, if you're in the Chrome browser, you can find Google Forms. It's one of the choices. If you cannot find it, you can always do a search for Google Forms. Generally, if you have a Gmail account or you're logged in, your computer will recognize it. You shouldn't have to log in again, and it'll just pull up Google Forms. To create, you're given a few templates. There are some that exist that they give you initially, and you can certainly use any of the templates if you want. And we're not going to do that today. Or you can create a brand new form, and that's how you create a form. So we're just going to start with, even before I show you any forms, with just some of the things that I think are important. And if you haven't worked in Google, these are just generally good advice. Whenever you start any application in Google, it always creates what will be called like an untitled document. The first thing you want to do is name it, because if you don't, you're going to end up with 100 million untitled documents, and then you're going to have to clean up your drive to get rid of them. So you want to name it. Once you name it, it'll usually give that title here, but you don't necessarily have to have the name and the title being the same. So have, document or some other name that's different from my title. And then we're going to go on to look at how you look at questions in a minute. But let me actually go out of this and show you a very simple and practical application of Google Forms. And that's a message pad. So let me just ask the question to all of you. How many of you take messages for an administrator? Okay. And then how do you get those messages to the administrator? What's your method for doing that?
I throw it at him.
Okay. Or sticky notes. Anybody email them? Okay, so I'm hearing email. Okay. So I want to suggest an alternative to either both the handwritten note or the email. I mean, the problem with the handwritten is the person has to come back to get it. And if you've got people out and about, where they're spending most of the time in the field, that's going to mean not necessarily very good turnaround. And if by email, the problem is that I'll try to leave the line open if I can. By the way, if it gets too noisy, I'll shut it down. But this way, you can just, if you want to ask a question, you can. But the problem with email is administrators are buried in email, so they can really lose them or miss them easily. So I want to show you, that's another way to do it, okay? But I want to show you a way to do it on Google using Google Forms. Okay, so I've created this very simple message form, nothing fancy. In fact, maybe I threw a little picture in just to make it a little cuter, but you really don't need that, okay? And here what I have is, by the way, this is the design aspect of the form. One of the things we're going to talk about is being in design mode and being in what we'll call like the ability to complete the form mode. So I'm just going to first just show you the form. These are very straightforward. They're all just short answer titles, things. I'll actually show you how you do that in a minute. Okay? And so what does this form look like if you're actually going to complete it? It looks like this. So you put in name. Now notice, name is a required it's a required field. Title may not be. And again, I'm just putting in anything I own. Okay, and now I'm going to submit this. So now I've completed a message pad. So you're thinking, well, what's the benefit of that? Well, let's go back into our actual messages for a moment, because what you're going to see is that any of the responses are here, individual responses. But that's still not all that great. It's still very cumbersome. So one of the things that Google Form does is it's linked automatically, or can be linked, to Google Sheets, which is the spreadsheet application for Google. And this is where the power comes in. So what you'll see is up here on the corner, in addition to being able to just look at the responses individually, these are each individual one, I can also go over to here where it says View Responses in Sheets. Now, I've already did this before, so it already set up a sheet, but if I hadn't done it the first time, it would just ask me if I want to do it. And so now what it's going to do is it's going to load Google Sheets. And I want you to notice a couple of things. Number one, they're all time-stamped. So there is no reason why I have to... By the way, these are ones I did before. This is the one I actually did today, okay, this last one. But what happens is they're time-stamped, so there's no need for me to put the date and time of the message on the message pad. It's done automatically. And then all the information is now in a spreadsheet form. If you know anything about Google, you know there's an ability to share a document with another person. And not the whole world, just with that person. So what you have is you have the secretary and the administrator sharing the sheet. And these update, if you have internet, these update. Oh, I see someone put in one. Crazy lady called. Okay, who did that? Anyway, so you see how it updated in real time. If any of you want, any of you could do this, because I think I sent you this form, and it'll just update in real time. Now, it creates all these columns. However, there's nothing to prevent you from adding additional columns of your own on the end. So this allows for us to have a conversation back and forth between the secretary and the administrator, like, can you call her and tell her I'll call her tomorrow, or whatever I did. So our custom is, when we've completed an item, we simply put a strike through. So now I know that that item's been done, and then at the end of a week, we clear this out, and we start the week again, or you can certainly save it and create a different one if you want to keep these messages. But so the person can quickly just pull up all of them. So any questions? What do you think about it as a concept? I have a few people that are using it. They love it. Okay? In fact, one of the people who contacted me about this was in Monroe Woodbury, and she and her boss are now doing it, and they really find it good. So what's your thoughts on it? You like it?
Is it in the templates?
What was that?
Is the message form in the templates?
Well, the message form was something that I created, okay? And it's not, but I'm going to, this is fairly form to create.
Spreadsheet.
Right. And it automatically generates the spreadsheet based on these titles. So I could show you how to create a form in about 1 minute. So let's do it from scratch. Nothing fancy here, okay? So here I have a form. We're just going to call this sample message, right? So the first thing we need, the first question, it's just going to be, and I'll take you through all these details. It's a short answer question, which means it's a one-liner. I need name. Now, I would think with any message I'd absolutely want the name, so I'm going to say that's a required question, right? Now I go and I do title. By the way, if you do these and write things like name and title, Google's so smart, it'll presume you wanted a short answer. Now, that one I don't want to necessarily have be mandated because, required, because not everybody may have a title. And then let's say I want their address, assuming, well, let's say next one naturally be phone number, right? That's another one I would want, right? And tell me something else you might want on a message pad. We need the message, right? So there, I need a paragraph, and in fact, it picked it up, okay? If I wanted email address, I could add email address, right? If I could learn to spell. Email address. Okay, and it asks, do you want an email collecting setting? That's new, by the way. And that means it'll only take an email. Okay? And now, okay, I think actually it put it up top. It puts it up top. Okay? So now watch my message pad. There we go. I got my message pad. Whoops. Mistake. I got an extra thing. That happens. I don't need that question, so I can just get rid of that. And there we go. In what? How long did it take? I got my message pad, right? Now I'll fill one of them out. Actually, it'll fill it out automatically because it knows me because I'm on my Gmail account. Okay? And, test, right? So I got to submit at least one. Now when I submit one, if I go back to my form, which I should always title, right? Okay,
Right.
I go back to my form, it now will say, do you want to create a spreadsheet? And now I've done what? Created the spreadsheet. And there we go, with the timestamp with my item and all the columns. Any question?
No.
Oh, pretty easy, right?
Really easy.
And the beautiful thing is you can always customize it. If you see later you need an additional question, you can add it at any time. Okay? So that's probably one easy, just quick tip of a simple form that you can create that has a practical use. So we're now going to look at the capabilities, and then I'll show you some additional forms. But I wanted you to walk away with at least one form you could do tomorrow if you wanted to do. Okay? All right, so we're actually going to look at capabilities. And by what I mean capabilities is no one would ever create a form like this. It's like the crazy form with every option. Okay? So, God. So let me take you through all the different types of questions. Actually, you know what? Maybe I'll start from scratch here, too, and I'll come back to that. Okay? All right. So we're going to talk about, again, how you start a form. You always want to name it first, right? And again, it should transfer this, but I don't have to have that be the name that appears here. Okay, so underneath, you always have an ability to put a wider description to show you how to create a form. Okay, so if you had multiple secretaries all answering the phone, they all could use the same form. And it would all port to the same place. Okay? And then you could put in a field if they were answering the phone for multiple administrators where you had the name of the administrator, and that's just a question of sorting in sheets as to which message applies to which person. So that's a way, assuming you wanted to use one sheet for everybody in a department. But you're not limited. Anybody can use that form. Okay? And that, in fact, makes a lot of sense if you have multiple people answering the phone. Okay? All right, so let me take you through all the capabilities here. So within this, we have all these different types of form questions. And so I want to take you through and give you as much detail about the type of questions you can use. So the first one is a short answer, and that essentially is any question that involves one line: name, address, phone number, etc. Okay? Next is a paragraph. That's anything that involves a larger amount of space. So multiple lines, like a message or, say, an address, and that's a paragraph. Okay. Now we go to, and I'm going to cover three different types of questions: multiple choice, drop down, and checkbox. So they all are similar. And in fact, multiple choice and drop down are essentially the same. They just are a little bit different in terms of what you see visually. Okay? So let me give you an example of a question, then later I'll show you one in a real form. Okay? What would you like for lunch? So here I have like multiple choice options, right? I have soup, sandwich, salad. Okay? So now I have that form. Now, by the way, I'm just going to go in and peek at it. Anytime you want to peek at it, I can show you again. This is the design. This is the form peek preview. And that's the little eyeball, and that'll show you what the form would look like if you're going to fill it out, right? So we're going to go back to the form. So that's just a multiple choice question. Now, I'm going to cheat here because I want to save some time so I don't have to type again. So I'm going to duplicate this question so I didn't have to retype it, okay? And that's how you duplicate. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a drop down. So now it looks the same here, but look what happens when I do it. So this has soup, sandwich, salad. This has what? Soup, sandwich, salad. So why would you use one versus the other? Well, this takes up more space. So if it was 3 items, I would probably do this. But I did a form where I asked people what state they were from, and I had 50 states. And so that would have just gobbled up a lot of space on the menu. It was much easier for me to be able to do a drop down. So I think it's just a question of space. But they are essentially the same in all their characteristics. Now I'm going to go to another one. And you're going to think to me, what's the difference? Because this one's going to look the same, okay? And that's check boxes. Now, by the way, this is just, if you don't know, there's a little visual cue. Multiple choice are circles, check boxes are squares. Big deal, right? Here's the difference. A multiple choice question can only have one answer. So if I select salad, it's going to take it out. Same thing here. I can only choose one of them. With a checkbox, I can choose multiple ones. And in fact, later on, I'll show you how you can tell Google Forms how many you want to accept. I only want 1. I want at least 3. I want only 3. So it's a question of whether you want to offer multiple choices. Later on, you'll see why this makes a significant difference, because we're going to have an ability to make logical trees off multiple choice or drop-downs. You cannot do that with a checkbox, okay? So are we good so far? Everybody good?
Yeah.
Okay, so now we'll go on to the next one. So our next one, I'm going to actually skip file upload for a moment. We will get to it. I'm not going to leave it out, but I want to go to linear scale. Okay? Well, no. I'll actually show you an example. You would use a tree where, based on a choice, you might be sent to a different part of the form. Right. For example, right. And in fact, I have a form like that. So whereas if you selected sandwich, it might ask, do you want ham or turkey or, whatever. And if you selected salad, it might ask what salad dressing. Right. So that's what I mean by a decision tree. I did one for a district transportation, and we had a different series of questions if, for example, you were a kid traveling to school, to our district, versus if you were traveling, even though the district was transporting you, if you were traveling, say, to a parochial school, because we're just different questions we wanted, So, again, that's what's going to matter, and I'll show you how you do that. So let's look at a linear scale. Now, in a linear scale, you have the question, okay? So might be, and you see this a lot in hotels. How was our service? And you have the option of doing up to a 1 to 10. So it started with 5. I could do 1 to 3. I could do 1 to, I'll just do 1 to 10. And then you're only able to label the lowest and the highest. Okay, so here, and obviously I'm being funny here, but, we have stinky and wonderful. Okay, so now let's look at what that looks like. Probably have seen questions like this that look in this format, right? what's important is I'm only defining the top and the bottom, and then I'm providing a scale. So that's a linear scale. Everybody okay so far? Okay, let's move on to the next one, which is a multiple choice grid. So here in a multiple choice grid, these are easier. Let's assume that I was going to talk about, I just did a survey form for a facilities department, and we were looking, let's say we're looking at bathroom, right? So we'll say, and then the column are the choices, right? So I could say poor condition, okay condition, good condition, and one could argue, do I really need condition repeated? Bear in mind I'm doing this off the top of my head. But, you know, that's a design structure. And say excellent. And seriously, do I need condition over and over again? Right? I can't stand it. Yeah, it just looks terrible. Okay, so now let's talk about various items. You're going to help me out here. What would I find in a bathroom? Sink, toilet, I don't know, floors, faucet. That's enough, right? You get the idea. So now let's take a look at what that question looks like. So it looks like this. And you've probably seen these on like hotel surveys, right? Where they say, how was the breakfast? Or how was your room? What's good about this is you're able to highlight more choices than you're doing here. And within one question, if I can use the bathroom as a main category and then look at individual items below it. So now if I was going to go to hallway, I would start a new question. Okay? Any questions so far? Now, there's another one, and this is a fairly new one that they just added. And again, I'm duplicating. It's checkbox grid. So again, they look the same. These look the same, but what did we say about the difference between multiple choice and checkbox? You could only select what? One of them. So in this particular question, checkbox makes no sense because it can't be both poor and okay. But I did a question where we were asking people, what times would you be available for a meeting, with each one of the columns being a different time. And they were able to select, let's say, this, this, and this, and have all of those choices available. Here, I can only pick one item per row. So it's a design consideration. Do I want them ability to select more than one? As I said, this makes no sense when you're looking at rating, but it might be if this was a schedule of your availability. Or which electives would you like? You know, or what would be your favorite choices? Okay, is it your first, second, or third choice? Okay, any questions so far? Everybody okay? Now, we only have...
Jeff,
yeah, go ahead.
I was wondering, would you be able to send us some of your sample forms?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I can send you a link. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, because, you know, in Google you can't actually send in the
right, well, share.
Yeah, I can share.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, I'm not sure you'd really want me to share this one. I've got better samples. This is kind of the form you would never use.
No, whatever you think would be helpful, you know.
Yeah. This is just to show your capabilities.
Sure.
Okay? So there's a couple of other ones. There's date. Now, again, bear in mind, I don't really think you need a date on a thing like a message pad because it timestamps. You really would only need date if you were, say, asking someone to request a date. What's a good date for you? Because if it's just a question of having the date for the form, that's going to be done automatically. But if you were in a situation where you wanted someone to be able to select a date, let's say a future date, what's a good date for you, then that would be a good use, okay? And the same thing with time. Time works pretty much the same as date, okay? So I don't use it a lot. It would probably be only in a situation where someone were requesting a date. Let's say, for example, if we were doing a form where someone was making a request for building use, like they wanted to be able to use a school for a meeting, in the evening. And then I might want to then have them have the ability to put the request in for a particular date and time, okay? But if it was just a question of when the form was completed, I wouldn't need it, okay? And here again, it just gives you an ability to put the time, AM and PM. Okay, so there's only one left, and I caution you, I would not use this externally. It's something I would only want to use internally. It's new. It's kind of cool, but it is new, and that is file upload. And it even gives you a warning. It says, understand that the person's going to have to come into Google and sign in. So if they don't have a Google account, they will not be able to do this. So this is only something you would do like internally within your operation, or if everybody had a Google account. If you were pushing out a form to your public and you don't have file upload in, it's not going to matter. Anybody can fill out a form as long as they have the link. They don't need to log into Google, okay? And so now when I create this one, it then gives me, it gives me some parameters about what I want. So, for example, if I wanted to do this internally, I could use this rather than email to have, say, teachers submit their grades. And again, I have an ability to limit what type of form. So if I know their grades are all in a spreadsheet or in a Google Doc or in a PDF, I can say I'll only take a PDF, and I can say how many files a maximum I'll take and the size. And generally, if we're talking about a PDF for grades, I want to limit it to 1 megabyte. Now, I will just give you a little bit of the details here. Whatever you title the question, Google Forms is going to create a folder to capture the questions on your Google Drive, okay? And the name of the folder will be the name of the question. So make sure you pick unique questions, unique titles. And if you're trying to figure out where it's going to go, how do you find it? That's how you're going to find it, okay? And now when you go to do it, again, I can submit this because I have a Google account. But notice here it says add files. It now provides me with an opportunity. If I have the files in my drive, I can do it. So if you have a Google district, they can do that. Or I can upload the file from my computer. So I could collect stuff. I mean, theoretically, you could collect permission strips from parents. But the problem is they have to have a Gmail account. So the most common use of this, by the way, is teachers using this with their students for them to submit their homework. Completed homeworks. So, but I do have a couple of departments that are using it also internally, like, for example, maybe transportation folks submitting their inspections if they complete the inspections in Google Docs or something like that. So any questions on that so far? Okay, so I'm just going to get rid of all these peaks because otherwise I'm going to clutter myself up. Because every time I create a view, it creates another tab for the form. And I don't really need that for what I want to show you next, which is I'm actually going to go out of here and show you some practical forms and kind of take you to the next level. So before I do that, just to be on the safe side here, let's just go, because I want to make sure this is important for me to cover. So I was able to view the form and just do a quick preview. But I think it's important for you to know how to actually send the form out to folks. So you go to, it's pretty big, you hit send, and now it's going to give you an option on how to do it. So I can certainly enter people's email addresses and copy them all in because it's linked with Google. If you have a Google group, you can just put in the name of the group, okay? And it'll automatically send it to everybody in the group. More often than not, I don't do it that way. Instead, I request a link, and then I can actually make the link even shorter. And at that point, I copy the link. And that's what I did when I copied it into Join Me so you could fill it out. But at that point, I could put it in Gmail if I use Gmail. If I'm like me, who does not use Gmail, even though I have a Gmail account, I use, Apple Mail. I can certainly just create an email like any other email I'm going to send out, and then just do a copy and paste on the link. I'm just waiting for it to come, and now I paste the link. And then I can send it like any other email, and you do not need if you do not put uploads in, you do not need a Gmail account to complete a form. And in fact, many of the forms that I have completed, people are actually filling them out on their phones. I developed, one I just worked on recently was for a transportation department where the bus drivers are now going to they have to do an inspection of the bus in the morning. They used to do it on a paper form. Now they're doing it with their smartphones. And it's getting automatically submitted, and we love it because they can't cheat and do them all at once because of the timestamps.
Mm-hmm.
If I decided on Friday I was going to fill out all my forms for the week to inspect my bus, I'd get nailed quickly because the timestamps wouldn't match. Okay? All right. So let's look at a couple of other forms that I've created that are samples. Okay, so my first one is a kind of a funny one, and it takes us to the next level in our understanding of how forms work. Okay, and so I admit this was a joke. Okay, so I was doing training for a local, for the State Association of Transportation Supervisors, and I wanted to talk to them about remember we talked about redirecting questions by a decision tree? Well, you do that through sections, and in a minute I'll show you how you create sections. Whenever you have a multiple choice question, and here's a question. I have an ability, you go down here, actually, there is this thing, you're going to see little dots on the side here, and it allows you, based on the question, to direct the answer, to direct the question to a different section of the form. Okay? So first let me show you the form in action. This is a lot simpler to do than it looks. Okay, so I have this, it's kind of a stupid, cute thing, but it's like a pre-test form. Are you so scary that we don't even want you to apply for an application? Okay, so here's the question. All right, so it says the following. All right, when you come to a road crossing with flashing lights, you should what? Speed up to beat the train or stop and wait until the light stops flashing. So why don't we answer the stupid answer first? Okay, so I hit next, and what does it take me to? It says, okay, you really can't be that stupid. Sorry, we're not hiring at this time. Please provide your name so we can flag you. Okay? So now let's look what happens, and by the way, I can prevent it from backing up, but I didn't do it here. I assume I picked the different choice, and I said stop and wait until the light is flashing. Now it doesn't take me to that, it takes me to a different section of the form where it says, great, Captain Obvious, please complete the application, and then allows me to submit it. So now let's look at the form in terms of design structure. So here I have, my first is a section that just gives you like a title page, and I'll talk to you about how you create sections in a minute. The first one is just the section with the question. The next one is the application section. The next one is the you can't be that stupid section. Now, normally sections follow in a linear format. They go from one section to the other. However, you can tell a section to terminate a question. So after you complete 3, you'll notice on the bottom it says Submit Form. So it doesn't go to section 4, it just ends the form. You don't need to do that with the last item, because at the end of a section of a form, it just ends the form, okay? So let's go back to our capabilities form again, the one that's like the sample, and I'll show you how you create sections. Actually, I don't think it was this one. It was the one. Okay, your head exploding yet, or is everybody good? Okay, so this was our question. This was the one with all the crazy questions. Okay, to create a section, you go here. So notice we had, that was how we added a question. This is the one to add a section. So what I do is I go and I click, and it adds a section. Now, the first thing you want to always do is title a section. That's going to be really helpful. It's not critical, but it's a great idea to title a section, because when I go to do the choice, then instead of just saying section 2, it'll actually tell me which section it is. Okay? And I'll just create one more section, just anywhere. And I'm just going to call this the lunch section. Now, again, this isn't a good example using this form, okay? But I'm just going to have the lunch section end at submit the form. And I'm going to do the same thing with this, well, it's the last one. I only created that section, okay? So now let's look what happens. When I get to this question here on what would you like, soup or sandwich, I can go to the bottom to the 3 dots and say go to sections based on the answers. So based on what I select, it gives me all the sections that exist. So it's the main section of the form, the lunch section, the service section, or submit the form. So even based on a question, I could go right to the end of the form. Okay? All right. So let me show you one that's been done that was designed better and that makes more sense than... I just wanted to do that so I didn't mess up my sample. Okay. So let me find this. Yeah, this is a nice one. And I put in all the aesthetic bells and whistles. I'll show you how to do that after, too. Okay? I'll try to have time to do that. We got about 15 minutes, so I should be able to 20 minutes. Okay, so I'll just lay you out on the form here. This is a form for sections. Based on the answer you give, you get taken to a different section. So my first section is my lunch selection section. My next section is my sandwich section. My next section is my soup section. My next section is my salad section. Okay? So now, let's view the form and see what we got. Okay, so I put my name in. And it says, what would I like? Do I want a soup, sandwich, soup, or salad? We're going to do all of them so you can see what happens. So let's select sandwich. Since that was the end of the section, I get a next button. And what did it do? It took me to the sandwich section. And then it says, what kind of sandwich would I like? Well, I like ham. And then it says, what do I want on my sandwich? So I want mustard and mayo, lettuce. Okay, now here's the quiz question for you. Since I can make multiple choices there, more than one selection, was that a multiple choice or a checkbox question? That's your quiz question. Multiple choice or text box? It's a checkbox. That's correct. You can always tell because they're square. Why? Because I could choose more than one of them. Okay? And then what kind of bread do I want? Okay, you can only pick one kind of bread. Okay? So therefore, and there we go. Now I submit it. Okay? So now let's look at the, again, and let's do soup. So now I did soup. It asked me what kind of soup I want. Didn't ask me about sandwiches. I go, I like chicken noodle. Well, I'm done. There we go. And now we'll do the last one, which is salad. And says, what? What kind of salad dressing do I want? And then says, do I like bread with it? Absolutely. I could have added what kind of bread, but I didn't. And there we go. Okay? So now I've been doing this. This is a sample one I have already, right? So I've had 25 responses from before. Let's see what that looks like. Well, there we go. Got everybody's selections, right? So if you know anything about spreadsheets, once you have it, you can do what with it? You can sort. And then with a little thing called count if, I could actually even determine how many soups, how many sandwiches, how many hams, etc., and then produce an order from this, okay? And I could tell when they were submitted. Okay? Questions? Everybody clear? Are we good? You want to see another one? Okay. So we have somebody from Chappaqua on, right? So I originally developed this for Chappaqua, but I took out the names of all your buildings, so it would be more generic. All right, so I'll give you a little bit of the background history. I was working with the facilities department in the district, and we wanted to do, building walkthroughs. And in fact, we did a whole bunch. The first time I did it, I produced this in Excel. So we had nice little drop-down menus, okay, in Excel. But it was really cumbersome. I mean, if you can imagine me and the facilities director, Joe Gramando, all of us trying to navigate our laptops as we were walking through the building, I said, there's got to be a better way to do this. So I said, no, I'm going to redo it again. And when I redid it again, I did it as a Google form. And we actually completed them all, even though I have an iPad. I did them on my iPhone. I have an iPhone 7. That was plenty big. It worked fine, okay? So what I did is, let me just show you the form, okay? So here you have building. And notice, what did we say about drop-downs? You can do a drop-down. So these are all fake ones, but I could have the ones in your district. I really didn't need a date. I kind of would redesign that because, again, what do we know? They're time-stamped. But we're going to go through various rooms. We're walking through each room. So I have to put in the name of the room, right? And then what did I see? Was it a general maintenance area, bathroom, custodial, or a long-term item? Now, these are multiple choice questions. Remember the little circles? Based on where you go, what your choice is, you get sent to a different section. So I'm going to go to general maintenance here. It takes me to the general maintenance section. And under that section, I have a list. Notice, I can have a scroll down list. So I could have 100 items here, right? Now, you don't have an ability to do a combo box. In a question, I can either only make the choice. So just in case it was an item that wasn't, I also had the ability to put another item. Let's say something was broken that I hadn't anticipated. Here, it wouldn't have made any sense, but I could have left this just at choose and then selected something like, door rusted, and then any comment, and then who it was assigned to, and then I could go, and that was it. Submit it. Got it? Now let's just go back again, and I'll just pick a different area. So it's maintenance bathroom. So now I'm in the bathroom section. Again, the form's the same, but it's a whole different set of items. Got it? That are appropriate to that section. And again, I'll back up and just take you. If it were custodial, here again, different set of items. Because these were all cleaning, not maintenance items. Okay? And I probably could flesh that out more. And then long-term, those were like capital stuff. And here again, there we didn't really have a drop-down because everyone was unique. Okay? Now, what's interesting is we were completing a lot of these. I could have gone in a room, maybe I did 20 of them. But it doesn't matter because they all get populated into one spreadsheet. This is the beauty of it. that all the results are now going to end up in one spreadsheet. Once there's only one item I submitted here. But then at that point I could support them. I could sort them, general maintenance, etc. Any questions on that? What do you think of that? You like it? Okay. Now you can certainly do a survey. I'm just in the process. We actually did one for Region 10, okay? And again, I'm just showing it to you. So we did a survey on our last webinar series, you know, and I just want to show you, I could put the logo for Region 10 in, and here's what the form looks like. And I do believe putting pictures in a form make it a lot more attractive, okay? So here, rather than just say, you know, how did you come, I decided to put some images in. And here I use the what? I actually use the checkbox. I should properly, it should be multiple choice because you're really going to, well, no. Checkbox is right here because I wanted to know what, you know, how interested you were. Actually, probably should be multiple choice. I'll fix it. Okay? And, you know, we're looking at a choice here, and there's my form. All done. Okay? Now, this was a form we actually completed, so I can show you I got 32 responses. I now have all of the responses. And what I did already, that's why you're seeing this, is I fixed it up a little bit on my version to make the titles a little clearer. And just did a little bit better titling than the original title. So once you create the spreadsheet, it'll still take new data, but I have the ability to change the titles maybe to a more aesthetic title than appeared in my spreadsheet. And I believe the last one I got was on 4.4, right? Also, Google Forms, it's not as perfect as I would like, but within its own setup, it also gives you summaries. And some of the summaries it gave are charts. So what I did was decide to copy, actually I took screen captures of these charts and put them into the sheet. So let's see if I can find it again. Somewhere here. So look what I have on the bottom here. Actually, it'll take a second. All of the summary data, and I believe I threw the charts in. Sometimes it takes a moment to load, you know, but you can actually put charts as well. Okay? All right? Any questions? So we got what do we have? A couple of minutes left, so I'm going to try in the couple of minutes left to give you as much fill-in of the details as I can on additional features. Anything you want to ask me before I go on? Or you just want to see a few more things? Okay? All right. So I'm going to go back to my little test document for a minute. Now notice that you get a banner up here. And I see a lot of people, they're really sloppy at Google Forms. They don't really know much about what to do with the banners. These look kind of drab. Okay? So if you go over here, you'll see a little color palette. You can change the color. It still is drab. So what you want to do is you want to go down to here where it has pictures, because it's got pre-filled out banners. Now, I will tell you, it's tough to create your own banner. You can do it. I have done it. But it's really hard to get the dimensions right. They have to be 600 by 900 in a certain size on the pixel. So it's not undoable, but it's going to take you some work, okay? But if you can find one that you like that's here, then you can just use those. And so depending on what your form is, you know, you may be able to just a generic, you know, visual one. I think that's, I don't know that I would pick that one, but because I think that's kind of Easter. You know, there are a couple that are, this one I like. I've used this a few times, you know. And there you go. And now when you view it, you're just going to have the banner. So the banners are a little tricky. If you are going to use your own banner, what I find really works is like a landscape picture. Like if you're going to have like a picture of say a sunset or of a mountains where it's a wide vista. If you take a screen capture of that, usually that'll work pretty well because you can pull out just a section of it and it'll look nice. I have done some with district logos, but I will tell you it's problematic because depending on what device you look at, this may get squeezed or stretched. So it might look fine on the desktop and then it looks ugly on, let's say, on a phone. Whereas if you do it with any of their templates, it looks good no matter what. So easier than that, easier than trying to play with the banner, okay, is to add images to your form. And here again, you can add an image. If you have that image from your album already, any image you've already had, it'll take. So here's one I did for a district, and it'll just put it right in. And then that takes a second, but that will appear in the form. So now this is the very top of the form, so that will appear and just look kind of like this. And that's just take a second for it to work. So if you want to put your logo for your department or like in the case of the Region 10, I'll do it as an image. You also have an ability to put an image in each individual question. And that's done, actually you can't put the image here. You can do it on multiple choice questions. So you see here on these sections, I could pick an image for soup. Now, this is not much of a soup image, but I could do that, And that's what I did in my other form, okay? And so now, among the choices, I don't know why that didn't work. Okay. But you actually saw it when I did it. I'll show you the other form I did. Oh, I don't know why it didn't work. Okay. Maybe you need them on more than one. But I'll show you one that I did already so you can see what that would look like. What do we do? The lunch one. So here you see I just picked one of their banners. I picked this image for the lunch choice. I didn't really do one here, but notice what I did here. I created a different image for each item. So this is still a multiple choice question, but I simply selected a picture for each item. And now when I view that, it takes up more space, but I'm going to get something like this. That's going to have the various, salad dressing choices. All right, everybody okay with that? Okay, we have only a couple minutes left, so let me just show you a couple of other quick things. You have an ability to create a pre-filled out form where certain sections of the form are already completed. So you might want to do that, for example, if you were dealing with a client or somebody and you really wanted to give some top level of support to them, and you were asking them to fill out a form. I have one client where they're doing energy management. So before they send a form to the district, they've already completed all the sections they can, the name, the address, so they don't have to inconvenience the person. So the way you do that with a pre-filled form, this probably wouldn't be a terrific example, but I'll just show you how you do it. Okay, is you're going to go over to these three dots here, and you're going to say Get Pre-Filled Link. And at that point, you're going to answer whatever questions you want to answer. So I could put in my name and my address. I'm not going to put the whole address. And I could have that choice filled in, but there were other things not. Okay? And now it looks like I'm submitting. But when I get to the bottom, instead of submit, it says Get Link. And what it's going to do is it's going to give me a link, and I copy that link. And now if I send that person that link, I normally would send it through, and you can do this through Gmail. You don't have to do it the way I'm doing it through Apple Mail. If I sent someone that link and they pulled it out, those sections of the form would already be completed. So you're thinking to yourself, why would you want to do a pre-filled form? Okay? So here's an example of why you might want to do a pre-filled form. If you are keeping track of, say, let's say these were evaluations for a training, maybe you'd prefer to have all the evaluations for all the training in one spreadsheet. So rather than create a form for each training, when you were pushing out that form to the staff for this current training, it would have the name and address already pre-filled out. When they filled it out, it would go into the main form, and then you could sort all of them. You wouldn't have to have like 20 spreadsheets for the year. Okay? So let me stop. Any questions? Because we are definitely running out of time, and I know I covered an awful lot in 1 hour. Anything else you want to ask? Okay. I can just tell you one quick thing, because it only takes a minute, even though I'm not going to do it. There are some add-ons that are available. Okay, and one particular add-on that I find really good are some of the notification add-ons. And there's a couple of them. Email notification for forms, confirm emails, notification. So some of them will notify the person that their form has been submitted and even summarize the data. But the ones that I have people really liking are ones that notify me. Because let's take a case in point. If I send you this form, unless I go into Google Forms to look it up or pull up the spreadsheet, I don't know that you've submitted anything. So I might not go looking for it. If I have an email notification that sends me an email every time a form's been submitted, then as soon as I get one of those, then I can look it up. And if this is some sort of a form where I'm doing an inquiry and I want to find out who submitted their grades, I might like to know as soon as it comes so I can start working on it. Okay? And again, each one's slightly different, but it just, asks you how you want to do this. Okay? That one is actually a premium one. It costs a couple of bucks. I believe this one's free. Yeah. No, actually, they're not expensive. This one's the free one. There you go. That's a free one. And it just allows you to, tell me, who do you want to notify? You want to notify me, you want to notify the respondent. Now, these will not summarize the data, it'll just tell you that one's been submitted. If you select notify respondents, you got to tell it where to find the email address. So you had to have had in one of the questions for the respondents an email address form. If it's just notify you, you don't even have to have email in the question. Okay? Because it knows your email from Gmail. All right? So I hope I haven't made you too exhausted trying to cover this in an hour, but I hope you found this useful. And I'll push out a few more forms to you. I know I sent you a couple already. And if any of you create forms, I always like it when people share. So if you create anything really cool, send me a sample. Okay? Because I was always looking for real practical samples to show folks. All right? And I think this wraps up our series for Putnam. I finally got it right this time. Last time I announced an early departure and we had one more to go. So I think the plan is to do another series next year. I absolutely would love your feedback on what topics you'd like to see next time. So let me know. I'm sure we'll run it no matter what, because we're doing collaborations, with more than one area. Even if we only get a few folks from Westchester, I should be able to put you in again with another group. So we'll definitely run something next year, and I know that USM we've already committed to doing something next year. But please, let me know what you would like. You want more Excel? You want more writing? Just pop me an email on topics you'd like, and we'll try to include those. More soft skill or more tech. Okay? Thanks again. Have a great rest of the school year, and we'll speak to you soon. Thank you.